All right. Welcome, welcome. We are in this Living Systems Collaboratory spotlight, and we're gonna have here today Linda Booth Sweeney with us. The Living Systems Collaboratory, for those of you who don't know, it's a side program of the Design Science Studio, which was created in collaboration between habRitual and the Buckminster Fuller Institute, and it's a collaboration with UC Irvine University. And thanks to the generous donation of Mansour Bakili, we were able to fund a few of the Design Science Studio students for the last 3-4 months to start thinking in systems and teach them a little bit about living systems and living systems philosophy, and get them to put their art and their intelligence and their creativity towards trying to figure out better ways to express and to showcase living systems. Also, for those of you who don't know, living systems is the philosophy that studies this idea that everything is connected and that the earth is a living system and that we are living systems composed of many parts that interact with each other and that self-regulate. And once we are able to zoom out a little bit, even zoom in, like once you realize that inside each pore of your skin there is like millions of like cells and individuals there composing who we are, and then you can zoom out and say like, oh well, we as well are one of those cells of a broader organism that is Earth, which at the same time is part of, like, you can keep going. You start thinking about things completely differently. So it is my pleasure here to introduce you first to Faith. She is the operations director at the Buckminster Fuller Institute. She has been absolutely critical into the putting together of this program. And yeah, we're super happy to have you all here and can't wait to have Linda on stage.
Excellent. Thank you, Nico. And thank you for the introduction. And I get the pleasure to introduce a friend and a colleague and a member of the Living Systems Collaboratory, Linda Booth Sweeney. Linda is an educator, researcher, and writer of systems facts and systems fiction. She's founded Toggle Labs to offer immersive whole systems learning experiences designed to help people of all ages remember what they already know about living systems, which is to stop operating from crisis to crisis and to learn, design, co-create in less fragmented, more regenerative ways. In Linda's work, she supports foundations, schools, Fortune 500 companies, nonprofits, governmental agencies, and many others to support systems change on complex issues such as climate change, sustainable supply chains, management, food systems, resilience, childhood obesity, sectarian conflict, and sustainable production and consumption. She is the author of the Systems Thinking Playbook, the Climate Change Playbook, Connected Wisdom, and When a Butterfly Sneezes, and has a second career as an award-winning children's book author. And I actually personally have her book myself. Welcome, Linda. We're so happy to have you.
We have a little surprise here. Usually you would be joined by another screen from a person.
Thank you for making this experiment possible.
Oh, Linda, one moment.
It has been such an honor. Oh, sure.
So as you can see, we're I don't know if you guys have watched Inception, but we're having this moment where she's in the virtual world and we're incepting that virtual reality into our stream, and she's gonna talk to you why this is happening and how cool this is. We'll leave it to her.
Thank you, Linda. Go for it.
No problem. So thank you, Faith, and thank you for getting us to this point. Again, my name is Linda Booth Sweeney, and I have been honored to be a part of the Living Systems Collaboratory and the Design Science Studio cohort, and really excited to share this with you today. So this is an experimental place. We're calling it Hugger Labs. And basically, it came out of a number of felt experiences over the last year, basically. One is our children, I think, with COVID and the pandemic, they're watching, they're worrying, and they they are feeling what Martin Luther King, I think, called the interrelated structure of reality. They know that what happens, you know, thousands of miles away can shut down schools and shopping and even the way they have play dates. And if you really press a young person, they know that it's not simple. They know it's not even complicated. They know it's complex what they're dealing with. And part of the rationale for Hugger is how can we help young people to lean into that complexity, to understand it, and to see it more as a guide than as an enemy. So, but how do you do that? Well, I'm actually going to be on my own. By the way, I'm in a virtual space with you called Spatial, and I am my own camera person and everything. So here we go. I wanted to show you, one of the ways. I'm just going to bring Bucky over here for us. One of the ways we do that is what Bucky was often quoted as saying: if we want to teach people a new way of thinking, don't bother trying to teach them. Instead, give them a tool, the use of which will lead to new ways of thinking. So we really took that to heart, and we started to think, okay, so what tools could we create? And we're thinking of them more as touch points, but some of those touch points we're thinking of are, and by the way, the we in this is I'm partnering with the School Fab Lab in this whole experimental space. They're really supporting so many of the innovations here. So some of the touch points we're thinking about is virtual reality. So what I'm in right now is again called Spatial, and Faith can join me in this even if she doesn't have a VR headset. I have a VR headset on right now, but you don't have to have one. And there's so many features. I'm going to try to show you some that really can enhance learning and collaboration, especially if we need virtual collaboration. So virtual reality, augmented reality, which is just, I think, I would call it the secret sauce for understanding complex systems. Because if you really think about it, you don't see systems walking around, right? We have to imagine the connections, and augmented reality can really help us to do that. The other is, write books, and what we think of as standard media, books and web, and we have an app in development, again called HuggerX. And then the last one is hands-on activities. Young people especially love to get their hands on things, so we have games that we're playing around with that go from a hands-on activity to an app. And I just want to show you a couple of those things. And again, I really had to push to develop all these, partly because of being in the Design Science Studio and Living Systems Collaboratory cohorts, and there's nothing like a due date to get you to really, develop. So, I'm going to show you one of the activities, but I want to just focus on this for a minute. What part of what I think these activities can do is address one of the dilemmas that we are, it's really a cognitive bias that I discovered in my own research, and many others have as well, is that we tend to think in straight lines. A causes B, end of story. When in fact, the system that, let's say, we're interested in is more reticulate, more web-like. The cause and effect connections can be, closed loops. So, one example of that would be, I did part of my dissertation was, presenting young people and adults with scenarios. And one, let's say, had to do with, wolves and rabbits as in a predator-prey relationship. Most people, believe it or not, when presented with that story, actually said, or I'd say the majority, said, wolves eat the rabbit, end of story. But the good news is, with just a little bit of prompting, those same people could say, the wolves eat the rabbit, but over time, yeah, if the rabbit population goes down, then that actually could influence the wolf population. And as that goes down, then maybe the rabbit population increases. And they get that it was a closed loop of cause and effect. So how can we help kids to play with that idea and discover it for themselves? So one of the games we have, we're playing with, is called a systems play kit. And you can see these are actually Girl Scouts playing with it. And it created a whole bunch of games related to, let's say, a farm or a national park or sea otters, and they use wiki sticks and they connect the cards to try to that represent the different elements of the system. Sometimes they would. What's interesting, and this is sort of, I would call this, I guess, action research. This is with a group in Brazil. You can see that on the straight line, that was the natural intuitive way of representing the connections, let's say, with a national park and animals, is in a straight line. But also there was a certain percentage, usually smaller, who would look at the interrelatedness. They'd find what's called the feedback loop in it. So we wanted to create activities like that that would really support that kind of thinking. And that's what HungerX Labs is all about, all kinds of ways to support that. So in the app, I think I'm going to just want to show you, I have to transport myself over here for a second. You're going to turn me around. Here we go. You're going to find me here. Yeah. Okay. So in the app, I have a demo that you can see on the HungerX website. It'd be a little challenging to show the AR and the VR right now, but it's basically a story from my book called Connected Wisdom, which is folk tales from around the world. I'll show you this real quick. Here we go, this book. And so with that idea of closed loops of cause and effect that I was just telling you about, again, how would a young person just get to feel more comfortable with that idea and see it in their everyday life? Well, in the app, we have the story. It's an Aesop fable. It's called Pallas and Hercules. And in the story, it's really simple. Hercules over here, he's walking along the road and he comes upon this monster called Strife. And here's Strife. And Strife is actually pretty small when he comes upon him. But then what happens in the story is that Hercules strikes Strife. And with every blow, Strife gets bigger and bigger. And you actually see this. You could, with augmented reality, a young person could play this out on their kitchen table or in their bedroom or in a classroom. And they're part of this story. And because of the app, we can actually give them opportunities along the way to intervene in that story. So the question becomes, how do you intervene in an escalation? Which turns out to be a really good skill to have, let's say, with siblings who are having a quarrel, or bullies on a playground, or any other situation much, much bigger that deals with, reinforcing feedback with that, where something escalates. In this case, it's the aggression of Hercules, let's say. Well, in the story, the way it gets solved is that Pallas, the wise, Athena, comes down and she says, if you leave him alone, he'll get smaller. So, but the whole idea is that young people are experiencing that. So just bear with me for a second. I'm going to transport myself over one other spot. I want to show you this. Just remember, this is a lab. So, okay, so back, okay. So now, as part of the hands-on games, but also as part of the app, what happens is you don't just learn about, let's say, reinforcing feedback. You also young people can actually connect them to what's happening in the real world and specific goals like the sustainable development goals and Project Drawdown. So one of the ones that they do get to focus on is the girl effect. And so they've just seen how in Pallas and Hercules, they've experienced that kind of reinforcing dynamic, right? But then they can see how it connects to one of the drawdown goals, which is to educate, the SDGs, which is education of girls. So they see how the connection between valuing girls success, and community success has a reinforcing effect. And there's a whole host of other connections. I can just show you some of the other language here that we're unpacking and animating and playing with are some of these other ideas. So and I think one of the other really fun features that I really want to show you, hold on, I'm going to come over to this moose over here, is one of the things that you can do in this space is, let's say we want to make, you can see I've got the wolf, and instead of it being, like this, which is 1D, you can see behind me I have a wolf, eating an elk. Let's say this is the national park example. You can actually be in this space and make, I'm just going to show this to you a little better, make the connections between using a drawing tool. I'm going to try to demonstrate that for you, and I'm relatively, let's see if I can get that for you. Might take a second here. Well, I'm going to try it real quick. I want to show you because it's actually very cool. Okay, let's just see if I can do this. Okay, see that? Okay, you can actually get the idea of if I put an arrow on, right? If I made it thicker, you'd kind of get the idea. So let's see. So the one thing I think I just want to be wrapping up here, and I'm going to get the drawing tool out here. There we go. So one last thing is, so there's many more things, but I do want to show you one last thing, which is, as we think about what we're trying to accomplish here, and we think, okay, what's our mantra? What are we trying to remember? Well, we're saying it this way. What the Magic School Bus did for kids' understanding of science, we're hoping HugerX will do for kids' understanding of systems. So I think, Faith, that's a good sort of overview of some of the stuff we're playing with in here, and I'd love to. We have a website and we have a Google group, and I would love people to join us on that, to be in the. Of course, we are looking, for funding, but we're really looking for a community conversation about ways that we can use this amazing technology to support collaboration and learning, especially around living systems. Back to you, Faith.
That is incredible, Linda. I want to be immersed in that world with you. I wish my avatar was in there. There's so much learning to be had there. I'm really excited
to fun.
So excited to share it with the little people of the world as well. And I think this is a great opportunity for them to really understand living systems in a real hands-on kind of way. I do have a question for you. In terms of the Living Systems Collaboratory, which is what you've been in for the last several months, how have living systems frameworks affected affected your process, or how have you integrated that into your process? I can see that in terms of the wolf and the I was going to say deer, but moose example. But can you tell me a little bit more about?
Right. Sure. I'm just going to show you this because I just realized this might be a good, it might look a little technical, but it's actually really not. So, by the way, living systems is infused. This is what it's all about, right? So it's all about bringing the principles of living systems to life in a way that it just feels natural, okay? That they're going to I think kids are going to leapfrog us. They're going to be the ones that are going to get itchy when they have to make decisions, but they don't see things are connected. They're going to reach out over silos. They're going to make this decision making, and they're going to be at like in the National Assembly or at a state level, or even in that White House, maybe, being informed by living systems principles. And so I just want to show you, because that sounds lofty, but here's something that we're really working on. Is you can see on the left hand side, can you read that okay?
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, I can bring it closer. Okay. All right. The left hand side are some principles, let's say, of living systems, right? The right hand side is the SDGs 2030, and how each one of those principles directly connects to, informs, and could make a difference to support the SDGs. So it's really embedded within everything that we're trying to do, but also trying to make it fun, but also like you can take real action.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think this is a really incredible way to integrate living systems into curriculum for children as well. As a mother of a 6-year-old, I can definitely say that my 6-year-old has seen this world only in a glimpse, but he was in awe and inspired by just what can be done with living systems. My next question
Fantastic.
is, how did you need to specifically shift from a non-linear or from a linear to a non-linear approach within your process? How was this,
Well,
how did this shift happen?
Well, I think the shift for me I'm always looking at, because my research is about, shifting from linear to nonlinear. So it's so much a part of the way I think. But I found myself wanting to have a proportionate impact, let's say, which is linear, between my effort and my outcome. That's linear. Nonlinear that's like turn the dial up, right, on your radio and you get the right amount of volume increase. But nonlinear is not like that. So I think to get myself to go swim in the possibility of more nonlinear change, I had to be looser and more flexible and be iterative and just try things and just play. And when things didn't work, like for us to get all the little pieces for this, you just got to keep flowing. So I think it was my own process, I think, that shifted especially as part of being this cohort with so many artists and designers who are probably more naturally thinking like that.
I'm curious what collaborations came about from the collaboratory.
Well, I found illustrators who were kind of, I'm trying to bring to life some of these ideas, but through illustrations. So we were, exploring, that. And, one of the ideas I have, which I haven't shown you in here, it's actually more than ideas, like going pretty strong, is a graphic novel that's I showed you the sizzle reel for that, right?
Yeah.
That's based on living systems. Anyway, so some of the cohort members were reading that graphic novel and were, suggesting connections for me. That's for more like, 7 to 10 years old. It's called Time Whiskers. So, you know what I mean? So there's so many different levels from actual bringing to life the ideas, but helping make connections to bring the ideas to life. And then my mentors within the Living Systems Collaboratory, especially, they were amazing. But Ivan was, woo.
Excellent.
Linda, I have a last question for you. One of the things that I've been ruminating on for the past years is like, thanks to the internet.
Do you have another question?
I have a last one. Do you hear me?
Oh, I don't think she can hear you
because you're in the screen.
But you can ask the question, and I'll repeat the question. One second.
You be my relay.
Yeah. Go for it.
I think
this is emerging technology.
As we move from being hard drives who store information to being RAM memory, which process information, I wonder how that's gonna affect kids, which are gonna be way better at connecting dots and way more of like non-linear connecting the dots. And what's her take on that?
Okay, let me see if I can translate that. The question that Nico just asked is, as we move from being hard drives to more of like a RAM memory, as children or youth, how are they going to be affected in the long term by this shift in the way that we're thinking and a more integrative way of thinking? How do you see that affecting children and youth of today?
If I understand the question correctly, I think personally, and this is very anecdotal, but many people have said the same thing, that there's some research to support this, but kids have a much more reticulate, web-like, integrated view of reality from the get-go. So it's when they often reach school that, subjects are separated, and yet that doesn't match the way their world actually works. Math is in one class, science is in another, history is in another, English is in another. But if they look at, as they get older, let's say climate change, that has to do with history and politics and science and geography, right? So I actually think if we can preserve that knowing, that reticulate web-like integrated knowing at an early age, and so they don't feel crazy when everything starts to get separate, and yet they're honored for it and respected for it, then I think they will be well set up to be leading us.
Yeah.
We're going to have to, we've had a different, that would be my view on it.
Yeah, I think there's a shift in curriculum that's already starting to happen, even from a younger age.
Mm-hmm.
And people are starting to really integrate a more holistic way of thinking and teaching. And yeah, I think that's going to really affect the children of the future. And the children that grow up to become the leaders.
And I want to be part of that.
And you are a part of that, actually.
So, yeah.
Nico, do we have any other questions from the chat?
We don't. So I think we're going to leave it here. We're going to wrap this session here.
All right. There's a chat. I can't see it.
I think we're going to wrap the
I'd love
session.
To hear questions.
We're going to wrap this session.
Okay.
Linda. Thank you so much.
Please tell anybody that we'll put the website, on the recording with this, and there'll be a place for people to join the conversation. Okay. So
I think that's fantastic.
And if they want to connect, LindaBoothSweeney.net would be a good place. So.
Okay. We'll put your notes into the chat. Thank you so much, Linda. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you, and thank you everybody for tapping in. We're gonna close this stream, and we're gonna start a new one in just a couple minutes, and we're gonna do 3 more of these in the next hour. So just continue watching.
Stay tuned.
We're having more interesting people coming up.
We'll see you all soon.